Welcome to the first of the Soul Sisters public lectures. And as most of you know, this is sort of a project, a research area at YLC, aiming to investigate sort of a new paradigm for connecting agricultural byproducts to other material supply chains in architecture and textile industries. And it's all geared around improving soil nutrition and soil resiliency. So today we're going to be hearing from one of two of our industrial partners, Global Mamas, based in Accra, Ghana. And I'd like to introduce two, or actually three of our guest speakers. Renee Adam, who's the co-founder and director of Global Mamas. I've known for over a decade now. And she has this unbelievable capacity to be gravity. She attracts all sorts of people into this lifelong project around Global Mamas. Over the years, she's managed to direct and develop a team to sort of make this circular manufacturing hub a reality. Located in Ghana's Volta region in Akuse, 50 kilometers away from Lake Volta, which was the largest man-made lake in the world. Since 2003, since Global Mamas was founded, it provides training, financial, and technical resources to women-led home-based enterprises, providing them a platform to sell products and ensure sort of fixed incomes that are over 1.75 times the national living wage in Ghana. 90% of all the revenue from Global Mamas that is generated by textile sales and products are reinvested back into the company as a resource. Since its inception, they began with, I believe, 6 women, and it has grown into a network of over 200 women. It was much larger at a point, but we'll hear more from Renee on that. And I'd also like to introduce Jürgen Strohmeyer and Shrili Kaur, who are co-authors of the design and build of the Global Mamas Fair Trade Zone. Jürgen is an architect based in Accra and Vienna, whose work addresses material and typological approaches to climate change, community-oriented design, and land use. Some of his completed projects include Nabuke Extended, an arts campus and gallery in Accra, in collaboration with Birbal Mueller, who's joining us as the Dean of University of Applied Arts in Vienna, and the Global Mamas Fair Trade Zone. Jürgen has lectured at the Ethiopian Institute for Architecture, Building Construction, and City Development, as well as the University of Applied Arts in Vienna. And we'll also welcome Shrili Kaur, who's an amazing landscape architect, especially to continue our discussion on the larger landscape and material ecology around the Fair Trade Zone. So welcome to all of you, and I'm going to pass the mic to. All right, Renee.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And all of the mamas in Ghana are so excited about this project. We've been working so long at trying to come up with better ways to deal with our wastewater issues and move to more environmentally friendly dyes. So I can't tell you how excited we are to take this next step with Soil Sisters. And Mae gave a really great introduction with the background of Global Mama. So I think I can actually go through some of these slides quite quickly. And that way we can leave a little more time for questions that the students might have, and also hear from Jürgen too about a lot of the architectural side of the Fair Trade Zone project. So I'll first start with just kind of going over the mission. But again, Mae gave a really good overview of that already. But basically, we exist to provide sustainable livelihoods to women in Ghana. And we do this by creating fair trade products of the highest quality. And I think you can move forward a couple there. I think you can go forward. And I think go back a little bit there. One thing I wanted to highlight there is, we do provide or produce a lot of different kinds of products. And most of these are made at the fair trade zone, which we'll go into detail a bit later. And these range from apparel to accessories, home decor products, and beaded items for jewelry and ornaments. And we also brought our own skincare line in-house this past year, which we're super excited about. And as far as soil health, I just wanted to point out at the beginning here of how important it is for Global Mamas to realize our vision of the fair trade zone. And a few things I wanted to point out is, the cultivation of organic plants, even with our mamas themselves, they're going to be planting agricultural products there and growing them for their own home use, and also growing different kinds of vegetables and fruits as well, which one day we hope to be selling and processing in our own kind of snack bar there for tourists and for mamas. But also, the soil health is important because we plan to cultivate raw materials in the future as well. And so having, the organic earth and having good water filtration and treatment system is incredibly important so that we know that we always have good soil health at the fair trade zone. And May has already pointed out a lot of our background on this next slide. We did start with 6 founding mamas, and today we're working with 330. That's like full-time equivalent. So we do work with a lot of home-based mamas too. So they might have their own small workshops, in the Cape Coast area where they're doing some sewing or batiking. And they also employ a lot of other, family members or full-time or part-time employees, and also have apprentices. And a couple things on this slide I just wanted to point out too is we are incredibly proud that 100% of the children of the mamas are going to school. And that is a big thing in Ghana because, you have to pay for your child to go to school generally. It can kind of go back and forth with what the government covers, but for the most part, you do have to pay for your child to go to school. And so 100% of our mamas are sending their kids to school and funding other children too. And after all of these years, I think the most exciting thing for Global Mamas that we have realized now is not just the impact that Global Mamas is having on the mama themselves, but it's really the intergenerational impact that we're seeing now. So like if you just look at, one mama's life and okay, Global Mamas has been providing them income now for say many years, but if you still look at their individual life, you may not even notice like such a huge impact on them because they're not running out to buy a new dress or, invest in themselves necessarily or buy things, but what they're doing is they're investing all of their money in their children. And whether it's sending them to school, giving them better health care, better nutrition, better food on the table. And what we're seeing is now their children are growing up with these empowered mamas as their role models and, going to school, going to the university, getting a chemical engineering degree. It is super exciting to see this intergenerational impact. And now these empowered children, both women and men, having boys growing up and seeing their mothers empowered mamas too is incredibly important. And I just love seeing that impact go on through the generations. And just pointing out too that Global Mamas is very different from most traditional companies. And as you all know, traditional companies focus on profit. And that is usually the entirety of how do we increase profit. And a lot of times when you're only focusing on profit, It's how do we cut jobs? How do we save money? And in the process, a lot of times, most times somebody is getting damaged along the way, whether it's the people who are being taken advantage of, whether it's the planet who is suffering. But when corners are cut somewhere along the supply chain, something is getting exploited. So with Global Mamas, we're proud as a social enterprise that we have what we call the triple bottom line. So we focus on the people, the planet, as well as the profit. So everybody wins in that scenario. So it's very important to us. Too, when we're making decisions, as a company, we're not necessarily doing it based only on profit, but our decision-making compass, which we use as a leadership team, is really how do we make a decision that is going to be best for the mamas? And we're also a guaranteed member of the World Fair Trade Organization. And I won't go into detail about this, but basically it's a program where we are deeply audited to ensure that we are following these 10 principles, which ensure that our products and everything we do as a company, we're doing it, in a socially responsible way, an environmentally friendly way, and then also economically sustainable. And so what's important about a lot of this is, environmentally focused, climate control focus, and then also, being sure that the waterways and things like that are being, we're not harming them too. So the biggest challenge for Global Mamas, we have lots of challenges, but if we don't have sales, then we don't have jobs. And so it's always a continual struggle for Global Mamas to keep going on with sales and increasing sales, hopefully, so that we can bring more mamas on and more sustainable livelihoods. But it's also very challenging because a lot of competitors have come up in the last 10 years who are also selling very beautiful, ethically made products. And so the competition we have is pretty fierce now too. And at the same time, it's hard to compete against companies that are, not necessarily providing these ethically made products. So when we use organic cotton for our products, it's expensive. And when we upcycle and use recycled materials, it may sound cheap on the surface, but it's not, because trying to upcycle and recycle materials is usually more expensive as well in getting those materials ready. And then also, Global Mamas always looks to how can we preserve handcrafted traditions and doing things in a handcrafting fashion versus automation. And so providing more jobs is more expensive too. So we have, we were determined to take this route as a nonprofit organization, but also a socially conscious company. And so it has made our products, having higher cost. But at the same time, we think that the trend, we're seeing a lot more going towards socially or having consumers being more conscious about their purchases. So they're starting to ask more questions about, where, how, and who made my products. And we hope that in the future too, that with more transparency in how companies operate, and especially more focus on the environment, that, Global Mamas products will, start to attract customers who are not just in our little niche of, people who want to buy fair trade goods. And Global Mama's goal over the long term is to become 100%. Here, I think you're on the wrong slide. I'm gonna go find it. to be sustainable. So, and how we're defining sustainable is that we're able to meet our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And this is important to us because we want to really ensure that we're not cutting any corners that is going to hurt any future generations. And so we're looking at this for, how it impacts the 3 Ps, the people, the planet, and also profit. Did you want to play the little intro there? Okay.
We're having some tech challenges with audio here, but I'll just play the video of the mama show going into the fair trade zone.
Yeah.
I'll share the link with people later. Yeah, because we actually can't hear the audio from this at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll drop the link in the chat.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to highlight some of our eco-friendly production processes, and to even kick this off at the Fair Trade Zone, we had a 3-day training with all of the mamas just to introduce them to the Fair Trade Zone and all of the awesome elements of it. But also it was kind of a graduation ceremony for them to become eco mamas. And it's really important for us to educate the mamas too on how important it is to be, friendly to the environment, because especially in more of the developing countries, focus isn't on the environment. People are more worried about how are they going to put, their next meal on the table, and the environment is always last on the list. So for us, it was important to come up with ways that we could teach the mamas, and they're sharing this with their friends and their children as well, but how they can also do even small things to be more friendly to the environment. So we went through different ways that they could do this, and we had a graduation for them to become eco mamas. So that was really fun. And some of the other things that we do at Global Mamas to ensure our supply chain is using eco-friendly materials, but also earth-friendly in general, is we use completely recycled glass when we're making beads. And so it could be from old windows, broken bottles. It's pounded down and re-melted into these beautiful beads that are either hand-painted or designed in different ways. And we also minimize our waste pretty much to nothing. Oh, here first, we do use organic cotton. And so we're very proud of that. It's a GOT certified organic cotton. We would love to be purchasing this from somewhere in Ghana or even in the African region, but right now, our only source that we're able to find in the quality and the quantity we need is India. So we are importing our organic cotton materials from India right now. And when it comes to the textiles, we use every piece possible. So when we have our offcuts from our apparel and accessories production, we take that and make it into patchwork goods. Smaller pieces go into woven items such as the trivet you see there, even dog leashes. And then even the tiniest of scraps, we are giving to an organization in Togo. And what they do is they make it into menstrual pads. So it's a really great partnership that we have with them. And we also use upcycled flour sacks. So these have been used to carry flour to the different mills around Ghana. And wash those up and use them for the lining on all of our products. So we're no longer purchasing new lining materials for our products. And this is our very exciting newest project at Global Mamas, where we are harvesting the water hyacinth. First, I didn't even know what water hyacinth was, let alone it took me 2 weeks to figure out how to pronounce it. But anyway, it's this beautiful plant that has these incredible flowers, but it's an invasive species and it's horrible to the biodiversity. It blocks the waterways, and so the fishermen have a hard time, sustaining their livelihoods. And worse in Ghana too is it blocks the waterways for the dams, and so it creates a lot of problems with that too. So what we've done is we've partnered with some other organizations and come up with ways that we can provide jobs to the women along the riverside there to harvest the hyacinth by hand. And then it's dried into the different fibers, and we can process it into paper or even woven items. And so we're still working on improving these products. It's been a very long process, but we see some good prospects with the water hyacinth. So not only providing jobs, but also improving the biodiversity of the Volta River. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we have now brought our skincare product line in-house. And so we're producing the Bath and Body products with 100% raw virgin shea butter from northern Ghana, so supporting women who are harvesting the shea nuts. And we are now packaging that in coconuts, which is really exciting because we're partnering with a local company called Akushi to do that as well. And then we're making our own paper to package the soap inside. So we're excited about that, and also expanding our Bath and Body product line to include other products like lip balms and things. And here we just wanted to show you kind of a range of the products that Global Mamas is selling. And I think pointing out mostly just look at the different colors that are being used. And I tried to give a little rainbow idea of what these different colors are in this slide, so that you can see, if we're moving to more natural and lower impact dyes, how can we ensure that the Global Mamas color range isn't being sacrificed along the way, because there are some pretty bright colors in there too. All right, so talking a little bit about the fair trade zone. I think we missed a slide there, but Jürgen is going to be going into more detail about this. But so it has been, the building of the fair trade zone has been, a dream of ours for, more than a decade. And it has been a partnership over the years with lots of different groups and volunteers. And as May said, we kind of loop people into this lifelong adventure with us, pointing out that May was also on our team helping, and Sophie, who was with Architecture San Francais and UK, and she's on this call too. But there's been a lot of different groups along the way who have tried to take this vision of ours and, put it, make it a reality, basically. And so we're excited to have Jürgen on this call too, who can give a lot more details of the journey we went through there. But I wanted to point out some of the kind of the sustainable production features that we have at the Fair Trade Zone. And because we're highlighting these throughout our production process and also using this as a platform to educate visitors who are coming. So the biogas is one thing that we have in process now. We're definitely having some issues there, and we're working also with the German Engineers Without Borders in the implementation of the biogas digester. So basically, it's using that energy, or actually, we're hoping to be using that energy soon to make our batiking products, paper making, and then also bath and body. And we're using not only the waste from toilets, but we're going to be using food waste, which the mamas are bringing in on a daily basis, and also the clippings and things from our landscape. And we don't have this in process yet, but we're hoping soon to have a solar system up at the Fair Trade Zone 2. And our first phase, we hope that we can just run a lot of our basic appliances when the sun is shining there. So not having a battery backup system, but our stage 2 goal there, which would be a much bigger investment, would be to run the entire operation, including all of the sewing machines and the various machines for the paper making process as well. And we have already done some parts of the sustainable water system, but there are some new steps we want to take with that. So we want to have a rainwater harvesting system, more gray water recycling in place, gravity-fed irrigation systems, and then natural wastewater treatment methods. And right now we do have urine diverting toilets, but in the future we hope to be able to produce fertilizer from the diverted urine that's going to a different area. And I also wanted to point out I know May had done an introduction to Crilly Carr earlier too, and he has been an immense help when it comes to planning and establishing these systems too within the landscape. And we also want to be able to amplify our story when, at the Fair Trade Zone. So we're putting in place some cultural workshops where tourists can come and do a lot of our different crafts hands-on. We'll be opening up a small gift shop there so they can purchase the gifts, and then also providing an entire eco tour so that they can walk around and see all the aspects of sustainable production from plant to product. Hopefully then we'll be growing our plants, on site and showing them how it's also being used in the production process. And here's a slide too, thanks to Crilly. So this is a very carefully planned landscape. So he has the different, dye gardens and the community gardens and canteens and a walking path through there to give a beautiful flow to how all of the different gardens are kind of corresponding to the production lines going on in the building. So it's really incredible what Crilly and Jürgen have come up here. I'm just amazed. I am not an architecture person. I love it, and I have learned so much along the way and have such a deep appreciation for everything that goes into this. It's incredible. And so as I mentioned, our vision is to have textile gardens on site where we're growing different raw materials for our textiles, also growing things in our dye garden, whether it be indigo or cashews, things that we can use in the natural dyes and mordants, and various other aspects that we can use in our production lines too. That's a look at the back side. That's a beautiful picture of the Fair Trade Zone. Did you take that, May, or who took that picture? It's great. So as far as what's next for Soil Sisters and what we are incredibly excited about. So this is our dream to move many steps closer to using environmentally friendly dyes, hopefully all natural dyes, and having treatment methods in place to ensure that we're not doing anything harmful to the environment and to the soil. And so our hope is, again, to be able to identify these dyes and mordants as well. And to keep in mind as we go through this process, we want to be sure that, you know, say if we're identifying different natural dyes that are performing well, can it be scaled to the larger production volumes that we experience, you know, at the fair trade zone in Ghana? And as shown earlier, we want to make sure that we're still getting that wide color palette. Because if we have fewer colors in our color palette, sadly, it is going to mean fewer sales, which means fewer jobs. So we just want to ensure that, you know, we're finding dyes that will not compromise on the job side as well. And of course, it's going to be very important that these dyes and these colors are color fast. So to, you know, rubbing, washing, light, and heat. And our first, our goal would really be that these dyes can be easily sourced or produced in Ghana. And that may not be the case in all situations, but that is where our priority will be. And we want to ensure too that, you know, any of the byproducts like the effluent from the dye wastewater, that we can also be treating that using natural remedies. And also very exciting is we want to try to find aftermarkets or a use for the effluent or sludge that does come out of the treatment process. So this is our vision and what we're so excited about. And I really hope that we can take some giant strides in this direction. So I just want to say thank you to everybody in advance for your interest in this project. And we're really looking forward to the outcome and the journey.
That was fantastic, and hopefully we can get a little bit of background around the fair trade zone next year again, and then we'll open up for discussion and questions. Okay, Jürgen, over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's both Krilly, Tsar, and me here, and we'll be going back and forth in our presentation. I just want to make sure the screen is now shared. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mae-ling, for having us. And it's also a beautiful moment to have this introduction of the very ambitious projects and implementations that Global Mamas has been doing over the years. And I think the fair trade zone, the architecture and landscape architecture of it is just one of those facets. And it's beautiful also to see that something like Soil Sisters is now developing, which is taking one of the interests and ambitions of Global Mamas into more detail and you know, trying to find solutions. The fair trade zone is a manufacturing, agriculture, and ecotourism hub in Akuse, southern Ghana. And what stands out in this, in the architectural project is this connection, or this borderless continuity between landscape and building and production. And I think that really comes from Global Mamas's drive to and interest to work and to create this alternative space of production. So quite early on, we I mean, before I came on board in 2018, Global Mamas had already worked with a variety of groups, including, Mae-ling and Sophie that were mentioned, on things like ergonomics in the workplace, or upcycling agro wastes, and there were all these projects within projects, so one of the tasks for us was, how do we capture that? How do we create a space for that? And I think the response was not to create something generic, not to create something without a face, but an architecture that can really absorb this and be an environment between buildings and landscape that can cater and house all of these different situations and scenarios, and also to also create a kit of parts that allows things to happen in the future we are not even thinking of. So here's an overview of the fair trade zone as we imagine it in the future. It's a striated landscape, and here you can see these elongated buildings forming courtyards, and really creating this intersection between inside and outside the productive landscape and the production buildings. At the beginning, I also want to highlight the multifaceted team, and this is just the core team of the architecture, and also the timeline. I think all of the interests of Global Mamas required also all of these expertise, and the way we approach the design and construction is really to find enthusiastic groups and individuals that would take on projects and inject their own interests and ambitions into this project. And I think that's also something beautiful that Global Mamas as a client to an architect is, which is allowing everybody to sort of push the project in directions that they were interested in. And I think that the architecture really reflects this drive for thinking of the most innovative and sustainable solutions, really pushing what's possible. So down here, I just want to also highlight the timeline, because this project developed over a very long time, and it is still developing. We are currently talking about construction steps. We started the architectural planning in 2018. Land was secured in 2019, and we started construction in early 2021, and opened the first buildings in early last year, just about 1 year ago. As with many things at Global Mamas, there was a lot of interest in working with the people that are using the spaces, especially the employees of Global Mamas, different groups working on different production lines. And we had different workshops in person. There were a lot of there was a lot of back and forth, adjusting spaces, and really thinking of ergonomic and innovative ways that we can make this work better. There is, and just to highlight one of the matrix, or one of the really complexities of the project, is this very large group of diverse people that are on site are on site on a daily basis, or on a temporary basis, their visitors are expected in the ecotourism aspect. There are people, a whole variety of people working in all kinds of production steps and management positions and so on.
So what you see here is the site of Global Mama's Fair Trade Zone in the middle. On the right side, you see the road leading to Accra. And on the left, behind the clouds, there's the Volta River. And so the site, actually, it's quite shallow soil, wetty soils, heavy black clay topsoils, with very soon, if you dig this base rock, and this base rock is the foothill of Krobo Mountain. This is the mountain which you see in the background. And Krobo Mountain is a very special mountain because in pre-colonial times, the local community, the Krobo, each family had a house up there on the mountain. And they developed a very unique settlement type, which was rock architecture, stone architecture, which adapted to the topography of the mountain. And also they developed a water harvesting system, where they also had agriculture on top of the mountain, which was very special. And this culture was evicted by colonial forces because the Krobo were so powerful economically. They had developed a very unique system of agriculture, the Krobo-Husa system, which was a cooperative system where it was not families, subsistence families doing agriculture, but groups which cooperated, which was very unique and made them very powerful. So this was too powerful for the colonial forces. And in addition, they were at this very special location at the Volta River, which was at the time a major trade hub for all the goods coming down the Volta River, being traded to Accra. And that was also one reason the Global Mamas decided to have the fair trade zone there, because it's an intersection of different hubs of handcrafts, of bead making, woven textiles, and also the proximity to Accra. So we have this. So this cultural background was the starting point for our design, and with this water cycle, rainwater harvesting, these trade connections, and also very much starting designing from the topography.
I'm getting a note that we have to pick up our pace, so I'll move on a bit quicker. Here is our the design steps of how we established this striated landscape and close connection between these linear buildings and the landscape, the existing topography and existing trees. And just to note, a lot of these, of course, there were things like climatic aspects, sun positions, wind, and so on, views that regulated this, but also financial aspects that determined the sizes of buildings, for example, to make sure that this project can be built in phases. Here is the site plan for phase 1, which shows 3 of the buildings housing production lines with the courtyards that connect to a first productive landscape, which includes vegetable patches, for example, that would be worked on by mamas themselves, but also the first locations for biogas and other services. This is then expanded in phase 2 in this site plan, which has a intensive use of and zoning of the whole site, including things like accommodation, a daycare center, a cafeteria in the middle here, surrounded by different gardens. Here is an image of the current situation where in this phase one, we have already these courtyard situations that are framing views towards Crowell Mountain, which became a kind of landmark that organized a lot of our views in the project. For example, also on this roof terrace, which is a multifunctional space used for having lunch, as shown here, but also for larger gatherings of the whole company, for example, or smaller workshops. Later on, this will also be a location in the tour for eco-tourists to have an overview of the whole landscape. To go a bit more into depth with the architecture, the architecture is thought of as a kit of parts that is easy to find and build in the contemporary vernacular way of construction in southern Ghana, but at the same time also upgrading or making every component of the architecture more sustainable and more ambitious. So within this kit of parts, there are outdoor and indoor spaces created through these bamboo screens, for example, which shade and create different degrees of privacy behind them. What you see here in this building section of phase one is also how the buildings are stepped down and how roofs and the floors are also aligned along the topography of the landscape. And in this cross section, you also see all of the different layers between outdoor space, in between corridors, indoor space, courtyards, and again, this gradient of indoor and outdoor situations. Here you see one of the interior views also really focusing on having great light, having optimal ventilation, having views into the landscape, and working with natural materials such as earth-rendered earth block walls like here, which create a beautiful backdrop to all of the activities and production processes happening on site. I'll skip this AXO in going over it in detail, but this shows all of this kit of parts exploded. And as I mentioned in the beginning, because of the scale and ambition of the project, it was important that this could be built by a typical contractor that is also, we work with AL Constructs headed by Lawrence, who was also very ambitious, but there was a sort of interest in making sure that we could build to the scale and the quality we wanted. So everything we built there could be replicated in the region and found easily. Here is our material palette, which apart from the floors and the foundation includes no cement. And it was important for us to keep this very minimal and raw, also to foreground the landscape and the production processes. And I think this came out quite nicely in René's presentation, how the architecture, these orange earth walls and the bamboo are now backdrops also to the press images that Global Mamas is using. And of course, we worked together with Global Mamas throughout the design and construction and maintenance of the buildings. So this is a typical site meeting with a representative from Global Mamas here on the right and a group of architects and contractors.
So the architecture and layout is informed by a circular economy. And this circular economy has three parts. This is a water cycle, a production cycle, And then also education, ecotourism, and training. This is displayed in this diagram, and let's move forward to see these cycles in detail. Jürgen?
Sorry, yes.
So these cycles start with the rain, harvesting the rainwater, collecting them in cisterns, and then pumping up the water in the water tower with a wind turbine. The water is then used in the production, for example, for batiking, paper making. The production wastewater is then purified in a wastewater treatment system, including biogas. And then this purified wastewater is used for irrigation of the agricultural patches, the raw material gardens. So this was the water cycle. And when we go to the production cycle, then the idea is to start harvesting the raw material plants grown also on site, using them in the production. For example, here it's the batiking process. And afterwards, the products are ready for packaging and sold. So you see here the existing batiking production, all this colorful cloth. They are stamped on the textile, and then they are dried on these drying lines. Right now, it's still like conventional dyes, but this Fairtrade zone will also enable a transition to lesser toxic and plant-based dyes. So, and the third cycle is displayed here. Visitors can come. It's open for visitors. They can have educational workshops, learn about the manufacturing processes, some drinks in the cafeteria, and then go to the shop and buy some goods there. Like the core, the base, the main part was working with this topography, the landscape, and then we developed what you see below, a hardscape, groundscape that includes the social spaces, the production spaces, and also outdoor spaces for resting places, which are each connected to these gardens. And above you see like the canopy, all the trees, all these tree species, they are also connected to the production. And we have in front more the savanna trees, natural trees, and in the back, fruit trees and productive trees, which is also species like Hyphene perseniana, which is vegetable ivory and can be used just as normal ivory, or the savanna species. We have Saber pentranda, which is coupled, or also Antiaris backcloth. So this landscape is closely connected to the production lines, which take place in the interior. And each of these production lines, which is quite a lot, it's from textile, dyeing, also skincare, bead making, have the garden patch for raw materials experimentation and testing. We also have an edible garden, a communal garden, and also an energy garden where we can harvest like grasses, which then go to the biodigester for energy production or as a natural insecticide. Here, for example, is the dye garden patch. Let's move forward. Here you see some of the species involved, starting with the African indigo, which was a major source of income for a long time and is now nearly not existing anymore in Ghana. It's very rare that it's still practiced. Henna also, but also other trees, Badie, Kuntukuni, which are like in the Ashanti region for like Adinkra printing were used. So, and at the core of this landscape of these growing raw materials, which then go into the protection spaces, is the idea that each of these garden will be developed in a workshop and training session where we invite like local traditional craftsperson who still practice indigo dyeing, and also invite like guests coming from India who developed like plant-based dyeing, which is also a bit more suitable for industrial production, for who meets like quality standards. This image was taken last year at the first start of an organic garden workshop of communal gardening, where also the local production teams have the possibility to grow vegetables on site, which then later will be also sold in the cafeteria. From these workshops, from this participation, it is the idea that from there, these gardens are developed and develop a totally new way of fashion production, fair fashion production, which is also innovative in a kind of way.
Thank you, Jürgen and Krulia. I think there's a lot of really key material in there that we hope to discuss also with Renee. But thank you for that background on the Fair Trade Zone design and the ongoing work you're doing. So I'm going to open it up for questions and discussion, everybody in the room and everybody online. But to sort of maybe kick it off, I maybe wanted to sort of relate, the question around what's grown on site and what is available in the wider region, to Renee's point around the workforce at Global Mamas. So Renee, maybe this is a question for you. I mean, given the labor and the resources it takes to maintain these sort of gardens, is there an ambition for Global Mamas to have women actually farming and caring for plants on site, within your current workforce? And this may relate to what actually gets grown on the Fair Trade Zone versus what is collected, from neighbors. So I don't know if you could speak to that. And I know there's an Indigo Research Center, really close by Fair Trade Zone. You're obviously working with the cooperatives collecting water hyacinth on the river, but are there partners already in the area, or are there untapped resources that we can also think about integrating into our material inventory? I think
I'm muted, sorry. I think our first step would definitely be to partner with outside groups and, hopefully like women-led cooperatives in our area. And because I think it will take us some time to even start growing some of those things on site. It's going to take funding also to realize those gardens. But I think if we do this on a scale that I'm imagining as well, I'm guessing that most of the production would be done in different, off-site villages, hopefully, women-led types of enterprises. But it would be nice if, we can do some smaller scale production on site too. And especially, I think it's important when we have visitors come that they can actually see this is what an indigo plant looks like, or this is what a cotton tree looks like. And it would be making that eco tour, more depth with that as well.
Awesome. That's helpful. I know clearly you've done a ton of research and you've documented all the plants there, but are there front runners in terms of crops that you think are easily sourceable? Just thinking about the material inventory that we work with here, besides the hyacinth, what is readily available and scalable in the area?
Right now, well, I mean, there are lots of mango trees around. There are coconut plantations around. The area is more savanna right now. I know, like from old images, how this landscape looked in the Krobohusa system, which was like a cultivated forest. Very interesting. Yeah, so these are like the things right now grown, and they're the usual like smallholder farmers who grow tomatoes and chili pepper.
I wanted to point out too the pineapple plantations in the area, because pineapple, the leaves have those great fibers as well, and I know people are making those into different types of textiles and vegan leathers as well. So that is also a possible opportunity down the road to partner with some of the pineapple plantations, and there even is a very big fair trade pineapple plantation in our area.
And there's the Soil Research Institute from the University of Ghana, which does a lot of agricultural research, mainly about rice, and also biochar making from rice husk, which is also for sure in the future a very important partner.
Yeah.
And it's
I would say rice is a big one. A lot of the rice is grown in the country here, but it's all Asian rice, I should mention. There aren't a lot of cooperatives that still grow at scale African rice. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for that, Kuli. It was super helpful. No, there's tougher. Sounds okay.
One quick question. Thank you so much, everyone, for really fascinating lectures. My question is actually sort of something that underpins maybe production of any type of product, which is that, and Renee touched on it at the outset, is that natural dyes cost more, recycled, even the time to take recycling takes more time, energy, maybe chemistry, and then most of all, this sort of handcraft that you want to privilege is theoretically more expensive than if we were to mass produce. And so we have similar things in, across, I think, all of the cultures of making, from textiles to architecture, and this will come up a lot in the coming weeks, is how do you sort of find a market for valuing those types of things? Like, do you have any strategies for how you would, in a sense, create the market? Because I think that we have so many pressures on both textiles and architecture. I think that's an incredible analogy towards, better, not better, faster, cheaper, and how do we kind of create the understanding that sustainability really is sometimes about slowness. Sometimes it's about the slowness equals durability and value. And so I just wonder, in a general, that's sort of a question to all of you, but then probably Renee, because she also brought that up in the beginning.
Well, I would have to say that I think when it comes to consumers who have a better understanding of these types of issues, I think Europe is light years ahead of where the US is. So we can even see that, our customer base in Germany and beyond is growing faster than it is in the US. And I think it is because, everybody there is just a little more in tune with, those kind of issues, whether it's the ethical parts of paying fair wages to, people, but also being environmentally friendly. So I think in the US especially, it's going much slower, but more people are starting to talk about it. And there's only so much Global Mamas can do, through our social media and getting our messages out there. But being involved in a fair trade movement is also has been really good for us to reach those kind of consumers. But slowly, we do see that these issues are becoming more mainstream in a way, and not just the niche consumers.
Thanks, Renee. Anybody have questions online or in the classroom? Yeah.
I sort of have two questions. One of them related
Can you
to
hear
that
it?
question.
You might have to just come close to the L. Okay.
Yeah, I'm curious, like how much of the products are sold locally or like in Ghana versus, like you're saying, in Europe is a big market, but exported more generally. And then my other question is about like organizational model and like in terms of like land ownership, like who owns like the fair trade land, how are decisions made sort of with Global Mamas and then also with the fair trade zone.
Okay. I love that question. So I'll start on the land ownership. So the land is in the name of Global Mamas, which is an incorporated nonprofit organization in Ghana. So that land will always remain with the organization, and that was very important to us. And as far as decision making and things like that, so we have a leadership team, which is, I think, out of 8 people, 7 are women. And, you know, within that group, we meet on a regular basis to set goals for the organization. And we have a monthly dashboard as to how we're achieving those goals. And even aside from the leadership team, we really spend time as well gathering mamas up, whether they're the offsite mamas working, you know, in their home-based operations or on-site, and we bring issues to the table. So we're a very participatory, you know, approached organization where, you know, we know as management, you just can't come in and tell people how to do things, because that's a very short-term approach that doesn't work well. So we always take the time to listen to people's ideas, and really to, as a foreigner, you know, I have found that, you know, coming up with these local solutions to problems is always the best way to approach it and solve things once and for all. So we definitely come together with ideas. And as we say within Global Mamas, you take a me problem and you make it into a we problem. And instead of having an IQ, we have a we queue. So we always come together to solve problems. And as far as the sales go, we are struggling when it comes to domestic sales. So once upon a time before COVID, 40% of our sales were made in Ghana because there was such a strong market, especially to tourists, you know, who are coming and very interested in the fair trade, ethically made products. And so since COVID, our domestic sales have not recovered, and they're still down a lot. And so we're still trying to build up those sales, and it really comes with tourism as well. So hopefully once COVID is still more stabilized and people are traveling again, then our domestic sales will catch up. But yes, it's still very hurtful to us not to have those local sales.
Renee, maybe a follow-up to that, because there's an analogy in architecture, you know, where everyone sort of shies away from working with earth masonry because it's considered, you know, for sort of the poor people. And in textile, we also have something similar happening in terms of batik. In the 80s, I believe there was a huge drop in terms of people wearing batik and tie-dye clothes because it was considered backward. And people, you know, sort of adopted sort of modern clothing, whatever that meant. And it's taken a long time. And I think Global Mamas and their other fashion companies that have tried to reactivate high quality batik designs, you know, to attract a younger population, populations who are, you know, concerned, as you're saying, about, you know, ethics, environmental responsibility, local identity. Do you think, you know, there is that kind of trend happening now that is effective in terms of adoption of your batik tie-dye sort of products? Or is that still a major barrier? And does design play a huge part in that shift?
I think there has been some steps towards embracing those older traditions when it comes to clothing. So although there was kind of that modern trend, if you want to say that, to foreign goods, and that's not even just clothing, but it could even just be, oh, an imported lotion is better than 100% organic shea butter, which, you know, we in the West are now clamoring over because we know it's great for your skin. But I do think there has been steps, and especially with the government when they have their, you know, traditional wear Fridays. So everybody is proud to wear their batiks or their wax print dress. But I do think, well, I have another funny story too, because there is a hair salon located next to the Global Mama store in Accra. And I remember once a woman came into our store and she was lost. She was looking for the hair salon. And she was amazed, though, at the goods. And it's kind of a high-end hair salon. So you would see women in there who have more money who are going to get their hair done. But she was looking around and she was like, wow, this is amazing. You know, where do you import your goods from? And I was like, they're all made here. And she couldn't even believe it. But I do think the problem with getting the Global Mamas products into the hands of the youth or even the more general population in Ghana is price. And it goes back to the thing where, you know, people are more worried about what are they going to eat on that day or the next day. And they're not going to spend more money on a good that might be made environmentally friendly. It might be made of organic cotton and it might have, you know, natural dyes, and you might be paying a good wage to the women who are making it, but they're not ready to pay a higher price for that story. And so I think that's why Global Mama's products domestically has been purchased primarily by expats and also tourists, even though Ghanaians love the look of the designs for sure.
Thanks, Renee. Yeah, sure.
I saw like in some pictures that you guys doing the dyeing like on site, the most of I only saw like solid colors, so I'm just curious if like the fabrics are that's.
Sorry, can you rephrase? I didn't quite hear the question.
Sorry, I'm just curious if the fabrics are wax prints made in the traditional process or machine like outsourced to other providers.
It was a question on the batik making. Is it following the same traditional wax process?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Yep, we do everything in the traditional way. So we have to do smaller batches. So we do 6 yards. We have to cut 6 yards and move them through the dye baths in a manual way, watching the clock for how long we have it in. We measure everything by hand with recipes. And we do the dewaxing step in a dewaxing pot too, where we put it in like you're making a big soup and pulling the fabrics through that before washing it and putting it on the line. But yes, we do everything in the way that it's done traditionally in Ghana.
Except right now with synthetic dyes.
I wanted to Mae-ling, is it possible to respond to something?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
All right. It was interesting that you made the connection between fashion and architecture, because for me, that's also often like there. And this question about how you can increase the market for these things. I mean, there is this struggle with our architecture as well. And, you know, in the material choices, in the way things look, it's very connected to identity and how people imagine themselves and their communities. It's an ongoing thing for me too. And one response that I think of is to be to offer something new, to not offer the old, but to really have something that is so convincing in its sustainability and its newness and its vision that it sort of breaks this, it allows people to imagine themselves and in this, in these ways that they might not even have considered. And I think this focus on design, on really pushing the boundary and looking at what is more sustainable. Sometimes that's something traditional, sometimes not. For me, this is one of the responses to this question.
Thanks, Jürgen.
I think that's a great definition of design.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very nice.
Time for one last question. Anyone in our audience? And if not, that's actually a fantastic place to end on. The owl is scanning. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you very much, Renee, Krili, Jürgen, for that wonderful background to all you've been doing. And we'll probably be in touch over the next few weeks, also trying to find inspiration and more knowledge around what's on the ground. So we look forward to the weeks ahead. Thank you.
Thank you too. Okay.
Thanks so much.
Bye.